Dana White said that next year, whether Conor fights or not, they're going to move on. So he was saying, like, you know, back in the days when Chuck Liddell fought, if Chuck Liddell ever left, what would they ever do? And if, you know, John Jones, Ronda Rousey, if they left, what would you do? They always end up moving on forward. He said they could do the same thing without Conor McGregor.
Well, they have to. Does that make sense? As a business, you have to. But don't get it twisted. Don't ever think that the UFC model, it has its flaws, but the UFC train is fueled by superstars. It is not fueled by the brand. Because if it's fueled by the brand, which the NBA, the NFL is, you're always going to have those ratings. Even if they say, oh, they're low, they're still fucking killing it as far in the grand scheme of things compared to the UFC. But the thing that moves this UFC engine is superstars. It feeds off superstars. The pay-per-view model only exists if you have superstars. So the mistake that they've made over the past 2 years, or especially since they sold WME, is thinking that they can survive without these superstars. And they've learned the hard way, and this year shows it. So I think when you take for granted once-in-a-lifetime athletes like Ronda Rousey, Brock Lesnar, Conor McGregor, John Jones, you know, these guys, or you take for granted guys like Max Holloway, or you take for granted guys like Jose Aldo or Mighty Mouse, or, you know, the list goes on and on. And we take for granted these guys, or Amanda Nunes, guys and gals. When you take them for granted, you don't build them up into the superstars that they could be. And you go, we're just going to focus on over here, you know, and you think it's about the brand, you're going to learn very fast, and you're going to end up with eggs on your face. Because, so he goes, if Conor McGregor fights next year, that will be awesome. If Conor McGregor doesn't fight, the UFC is going to go on. They have to. I've been hearing this since 2000. He always says this. I've been hearing this since 2003. What are you going to do when Chuck Liddell's gone? Times are different now. You know, when you say, oh, what are you going to do when Chuck Liddell leaves? There are about 8 pay-per-views that year. Chuck was in half of them. Yeah. So that's different because he was everything. What are you going to do when GSP leaves? You're in big trouble when Anderson Silva gone. The list goes on and on. Ronda Rousey last year was best in company's history. So we're going to keep finding new talent, put on the best fights in the world, and that we're going to continue to do with or without anybody. That's the business mindset you have. What are they going to do? Sit there with their dicks in their hand because Conor McGregor's not fighting? You got to move on, but you also got to realize what you have, and you can't just view them as dispensable superstars. Like, oh, they're out. See ya. Who's next? Oh, we can create any superstar we want. You can? Okay. Well, you've tried that. Those superstars are created themselves. So John Jones being undefeated created his superstardom. George St. Pierre putting on those fights, being undefeated, created that superstardom. Ronda Rousey going there, murking all the girls, created their superstardom. Yeah, you guys promote them a little bit, but what sells them is themselves. Their whole being. It's just not this UFC machine that does it. The UFC machine can help, but those superstars will be superstars with or without the UFC. If Conor McGregor decided to do a McGregor promotion and put on a fight, he's not missing any viewership. The brand's still there. He doesn't need the UFC. If Ronda Rousey or Brock Lesnar or John Jones decide to put on a fight themselves, contractually they can't, but let's say they could, they don't miss a step. They don't miss a beat. So who needs who here? Now, when they're coming up, sure. Yeah, they're going to need to push. They need somewhere to fight, stuff like that. But all I'm saying is I've heard the UFC brass say, guys can come and go. We decide who's a superstar. You're confusing this with the WWE when you do that. You don't decide. You don't. And you say, well, where were we 4 years ago? Conor wasn't here. Yeah, he's the biggest thing all time now. You're lucky a guy like that walked through your doors. You're lucky a guy like that has the talent to beat the guys the way he does. You're lucky that Conor has the abilities, the gift of the gab to sell the fight for you. You're just a camera and a stage. You're just a cage. Don't get it twisted. You think by putting him on UFC Tonight, which might average 100,000 viewers, you think that's promoting him? You don't think Conor, Ronda, Brock, John, these superstars could get on USA Today themselves? What are you guys really doing for them? This day and age, you want a publicist? You're looking at it. You have an iPhone? That's your publicist these days. You're your own publicist. If Conor McGregor wants to do a meet and greet, you think he needs the UFC to blast it out on their social media, get people to come? You think if he's going to write a book, he needs to make sure that the UFC tweets it out for him to sell these books? You think Brock Lesnar to sell more shirts needs WWE or the UFC to tweet something out for him? No. The game has completely changed because of technology. You're a camera and a cage. Don't ever get that confused. You're a camera and a cage.
I like that. Technology changed the game.
Technology changes the game, and there are some guys who do need the UFC. They need that camera and cage because they can't figure out, but there's a lot of guys who don't. That cell phone is is your personal publicist. Your social media is your new publicist. Sure, you could do let's say you do an article in USA Today and you get 500,000 views on it. That's cool. Or you build your social media and you have a YouTube channel and your Twitter's at 100,000 or at 1 million, something like that. That goes, more people see that than any article that this publicist you're paying or the UFC's publicist team is setting you up with. We have that power now. It's pretty cool. But to sit around and wait, remember, you're a cage and a camera. Chill out. What else you got?
That's going to catch on, I'm sure. Cage and a camera.